Assalamualaikum dan selamat sejahtera. Anda bersama saya Nabilah Khaleeda dan ini Niaga AWANI. Kita akan berikan tumpuan berita bisnes kewangan dan juga ekonomi dalam segmen ini dan kita akan mulakan dengan di mana kita nak memahami bagaimana keputusan untuk The Fed Amerika Syarikat tidak menaikkan kadar pinjaman mempunyai impak yang signifikan kepada ekonomi dan pasaran kewangan Malaysia. Dan perkara ini juga mencetuskan gelombang ketidakpastian dalam setiap aspek ekonomi dan kita nak meneliti bagaimana keputusan ini akan mencorakkan masa depan ekonomi kita dan apa jangkaan untuk baki separuh kedua tahun ini. Saya akan bersama dengan Imran Yassin Mak Yusof, Ketua MIDF Research dalam Thailand pada ketika ini. Imran, pihak US Fed sekali lagi telah membuat keputusan untuk tidak menaikkan kadar pinjaman pada mesyuarat FOMC minggu ini. Jadi boleh Imran kupaskan lebih lanjut mengenai keputusan FOMC?
Selamat pagi. Selepas mesyuarat dasar pada Julai yang lepas ni, FOMC Fed memutuskan untuk mengekalkan penanda aras kadar dana Fed atau kita panggil Fed Fund Rate pada Julai sedia ada 5.25 hingga 5.5%. Keputusan ini sebenarnya telah dijangkakan oleh pasaran dan MIDF kerana inflasi Amerika Syarikat kekal di atas sasaran 2%, sekaligus memerlukan Fed mengekalkan dasar monetary yang ketat buat masa kini. Tapi kalau kita lihat dalam kenyataan FOMC, mereka menyatakan bahawa terdapat kemajuan selanjutnya dalam inflasi ke arah sasaran 2% Fed. Kesimpulannya ini adalah perubahan dalam nada daripada kemajuan selanjutnya yang sederhana yang dinyatakan oleh pihak FOMC sebelum ini pada Jun 24. Inflasi teras PCE sebagai contoh telah menyederhana pada 2.6% pada bulan Jun dan ini adalah terendah dalam 3 tahun. Jadi kita ada lihat ada trend penyederhanaan. Dengan itu pengurusi US Fed memberi isyarat kemungkinan US Fed akan mula mengurangkan kadar faedah pada mesyuarat seterusnya tertaluk kepada penyederhanaan selanjutnya dalam inflasi Amerika Syarikat. Walaupun US Fed telah menekankan kelemahan pada data mereka, secara rumusnya ia menampakkan kemungkinan pada mesyuarat FOMC pada September ini kita mungkin akan ada pemotongan, akhirnya akan ada pemotongan kadar faedah mereka lah.
Dan kita nak tahu juga bagaimana keputusan US Fed untuk mengekalkan kadar pinjaman ini kalau kita bandingkan dengan jangkaan pasaran dan juga apa justifikasi utama yang diberikan oleh US Fed dan mungkin adakah terdapat tanda-tanda bahawa keputusan ini mungkin berubah dalam masa terdekat, Imran?
Memang ada justifikasi untuk mereka tidak menurunkan. Ini adalah dari segi inflasi mereka masih lagi belum sampai ke sasaran 2% mereka. Tetapi kita boleh lihat ada trend penyederhanaan seperti saya cakapkan tadi. Jadi dengan trend penyederhanaan ini memberi isyarat kepada pasaran yang akan menjangkakan pihak US Fed akan mula memotong pada bulan September, iaitu mesyuarat FOMC yang selanjutnya, dan mengikut pasaran mereka menjangkakan akan terdapat pemotongan sebanyak 3 kali, iaitu pada bulan September, bulan November dan bulan Disember lah. Tetapi ini juga selaras dengan apa yang diberi gambaran oleh Presiden atau pengurusi US Fed Jerome Powell dalam statement dia. Statement dia ada menunjukkan memberi gambaran bahawa mereka akan mula memotong pada bulan September ini. Tetapi dia menolak bahawa US Fed akan memotong dengan secara agresif lah. So jadi pasaran menjangkakan ia akan meletak sebanyak 25 mata asas lah.
Dan mungkin Imran boleh kongsikan juga apakah impak keputusan ini kepada ekonomi dan ringgit Malaysia dan bagaimana pengekalan kadar pinjaman ini sebenarnya mempengaruhi nilai ringgit secara langsung?
Impak kepada ekonomi adalah secara tidak langsung lah ekonomi Malaysia. Jadi kalau jangka ekonomi di Amerika Syarikat dijangka boleh kita katakan bertumbuh dengan rancak lah kalau kita lihat dia punya GDP pada suku kedua amat pantas dan ini akan memberi kesan positif melalui sektor luaran di mana Amerika Syarikat merupakan salah satu rakan dagang utama Malaysia. Dan dengan ada pemotongan ini juga dijangka akan memastikan ekonomi Amerika Syarikat boleh apa yang kita katakan soft landing lah, tidak berdepan dengan ekonomi yang meleset. Yang impak yang lebih ketara adalah kepada ringgit lah. Kalau kita lihat jika sebelum ini apa yang kita panggilkan interest rate differential, iaitu perbezaan interest rate atau kadar pinjaman di US dan kadar pinjaman di Malaysia, kita punya OPR, amat ketara. Ia memberi tekanan kepada ringgit berbanding dengan dolar. Tetapi kami menjangkakan tekanan ini makin berkurangan dengan adanya pemotongan. Kita boleh lihat bagaimana pasaran mata wang bergerak lebih awal. Kita lihat bagaimana bulan Jun saja ringgit berbanding dengan US dollar ada bermula pada kadar lebih kurang 4.721 pada awal bulan Julai, semalam 4.567. Jadi kita boleh lihat mana secara langsung pemotongan kadar pinjaman pertama di Amerika Syarikat yang dijangkakan pada September ini memberikan impak yang begitu ketara kepada ringgit.
Dan bagaimana pula dengan impak kepada pasaran saham Malaysia? Adakah ia positif atau negatif dan bagaimana ia memberi keyakinan kepada pelabur untuk meningkatkan pelaburan mereka di pasaran saham Malaysia, dan apakah sektor yang mungkin mendapat manfaat atau sebaliknya?
Sudah pasti impak mesyuarat FOMC kali ini amat positif kerana ia memberi gambaran bahawa akan ada pemotongan kadar faedah. Dengan isyarat ini kita boleh lihat bagaimana dalam masa seminggu ini LCI naik sebanyak 0.64%. Jadi dari segi itu kita boleh jangkakan LCI akan terus mengekalkan momentum atau prestasi yang memberangsangkan ini. Lagi kita dekat kepada pemotongan kadar faedah, kita boleh expect lah, jangkakan yang LCI akan terus meningkat dan mengekalkan momentum. Ini adalah kerana sentimen positif yang diberikan oleh pemotongan ini dari segi valuation ia akan lebih rendah dan sebagainya. Dan kita juga boleh lihat bagaimana tahun ini LCI banyak bergerak selari dengan keputusan atau jangkaan keputusan FOMC. Sektor-sektor yang mungkin akan mendapat impak positif adalah mungkin sektor-sektor yang mungkin terkebelakangan sikit dari segi prestasi mereka. Kami menjangkakan seperti sektor kewangan, sektor kesihatan, sektor consumer dan sebagainya.
Mungkin yang terakhir, Imran, berdasarkan keputusan US Fed ini juga, apakah jangkaan MIDF Research kepada trend pasaran saham Malaysia bergerak ke hadapan, dan apakah faktor-faktor domestik utama yang turut mempengaruhi ramalan mereka seperti dasar fiskal kerajaan, dan kita nak lihat juga kepada keadaan politik semasa dan prestasi sektor-sektor utama ekonomi Malaysia. Jadi apakah jangkaan, Imran?
Kita menjangkakan momentum untuk FOMC akan diteruskan. Jadi kita ada target 1,750 untuk LCI. Jadi dengan saya cakap makin dekat kita kepada September, mungkin pasaran akan lebih rancak. Selain daripada itu, ada juga faktor-faktor domestik yang antara ketara adalah pertumbuhan ekonomi yang lebih tinggi untuk tahun ini. Prospek pertumbuhan ekonomi dan sebagai lanjutnya pendapatan korporat. Mengenai prospek pertumbuhan ekonomi, kami menjangka bahawa ini menyaksikan pertumbuhan yang lebih baik. MIDF menjangkakan pertumbuhan KDNK sebanyak 4.7% buat masa kini. Tapi kita tidak menolak kemungkinan ini mungkin akan disemak semula kerana kadar yang lebih tinggi apabila kita lihat advance GDP estimate untuk suku kedua. Ini didorong oleh permintaan domestik yang stabil, pemulihan dalam perdagangan luar, harga komoditi terutama minyak Brent juga dijangka kekal tinggi dengan faktor geopolitik. Jadi ini akan diterjemahkan kepada pendapatan korporat yang lebih mantap. Jadi kemudian dari segi penilaian, KLCI boleh dianggap dinilai yang rendah jika dibanding dengan sejarah nilai KLCI.
Baik, terima kasih diucapkan kepada Imran Yassin Mat Yusof, Ketua MIDF Research, atas perkongsian itu tadi. Saya akan tunjukkan pergerakan ataupun prestasi ringgit dan juga bursa sebentar lagi, tapi pada waktu ini kita akan lihat ringkas dagang dan kita akan berhenti seketika.
PM Group Berhad, anak syarikat milik penuh Khazanah Nasional Berhad, mengumumkan pelantikan Datuk Hisham Hamdan sebagai pengerusi dan Datuk Amran Hafiz Afifuddin selaku pengarah urusan berkuat kuasa 1 Ogos 2024. Perubahan kepimpinan di dalam kumpulan itu adalah susulan peletakan jawatan Datuk Muhammad Izzani Gadi selaku pengarah urusan pada 31 Julai 2024 setelah berkhidmat selama 5 tahun sejak 2019. Jumlah pinjaman terus mencatatkan perkembangan positif pada Jun 2024 dengan peningkatan sebanyak 6.4% dari tahun ke tahun. RHB Investment berkata perkembangan itu didorong peningkatan pinjaman isi rumah sebanyak 6%, kewangan 19% dan segmen perdagangan borong serta runcit pada kadar 11%. Untung bersih sitos digital Berhad bagi tempoh 6 bulan berakhir 30 Jun 2024 meningkat kepada RM46 juta berbanding RM37.7 juta bagi suku sama tahun sebelumnya didorong hasil yang lebih tinggi. Kumpulan itu dalam satu makluman kepada Bursa Malaysia bagi tempoh berkenaan, hasil mereka juga meningkat kepada RM148.2 juta berbanding RM1,221.8 juta bagi 6 bulan pertama tahun kewangan 2023. Laporan penuh di saluran 501 dan astroawani.com serta dagangnews.com.
Merdeka Top 6 pada minggu ini.
Itu yang kita nak in this competition. We want something real. Now that's your challenge.
Masa untuk buktikan kebolehan mereka. TikTok Live Astro Give Me The Mic Malaysia. Siaran langsung di Astro Ria dan Astro Go.
5 lelaki penghantar makanan didakwa di Mahkamah Magistrate Bangi atas tuduhan membunuh seorang pemandu kereta lelaki dalam satu kejadian.
4 sungai di sekitar kawasan perindustrian Pasir Gudang di Johor termasuk Sungai Kim Kim didapati tercemar dan berada pada tahap yang membimbangkan. Kerajaan sudah mulakan inisiatif untuk menggantikan kenderaan operasinya kepada kenderaan elektrik EV dalam skala kecil terlebih dahulu.
Fraser and Neave Holdings Berhad (FNN) mencatatkan pendapatan berjumlah RM1.304 bilion pada suku ketiga tahun kewangan 2024, susut 2.1% berbanding setahun sebelumnya. Dalam pemakluman kepada Bursa Malaysia, kumpulan itu berkata kemerosotan pendapatan itu disebabkan oleh ketidaktentuan geopolitik di Laut Merah yang menjejaskan ekspor produk makanan dan minuman Malaysia. Hartalega Holdings Berhad diramal mencatatkan peningkatan dalam pendapatan pada suku pertama didorong oleh kadar penggunaan yang lebih tinggi dan peningkatan pesanan jualan. Philip Capital berkata untung bersih untuk suku pertama berakhir 30 Jun 2024 berkemungkinan mencecah RM45 juta hingga RM55 juta. Petroleum Nasional Berhad Petronas melancarkan 3 buah stesen minyak di Brazil menerusi inisiatif pelesinan jenama dengan syarikat tempatan SIM Distribuidora SIM. Kerjasama itu menyaksikan SIM akan mengendalikan 3 stesen minyak percubaan berjenama Petronas di Brazil yang terletak di lokasi strategik di kawasan bandar utama negara Amerika Selatan itu. Laporan penuh di saluran 501 dan astroawani.com, sedagangnews.com.
Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda. Baik, kita kini berada dalam segmen Jiwa SME di mana perkongsian di media sosial menjadi pencetus idea untuk menghasilkan sabun pelbagai guna dengan mengitar semula minyak masak terpakai sekaligus mengurangkan kadar pencemaran alam sekitar. Menurut Nur Halimah Saadiah Awang atau Abdullah 50 tahun, dia mula terlibat secara aktif dengan program Kitar Semula sejak 2012 selepas mempelajari asas pembuatan sabun melalui platform digital sebelum menyertai beberapa bengkel bersemuka secara serius. Nur Halimah Saadiah yang bertugas sebagai guru di Sekolah Kebangsaan Seberang Tayor berkata, dia mula memasarkan sabun yang dihasilkan sejak 3 tahun lalu selepas memenangi beberapa pertandingan sekaligus mendapat pengiktirafan pelbagai pihak.
Bila peluang ini dibuka oleh pihak Petronas dan Yayasan Hijau Malaysia, sambutan untuk menyertai bengkel ni secara percuma dan sokongan daripada Majlis Perbandaran Kemahaman pun sangat baik, daripada 30 orang peserta sampai boleh jadi hampir 50 orang peserta. Disebabkan sabun ni memerlukan sebulan selepas dibuat baru boleh digunakan, jadi kita perlu sentiasa bersedia dengan stok sabun untuk pasaran.
Sabun berkenaan dihasilkan menggunakan minyak masak terpakai, air dan sodium hidroksida yang diadun dengan bahan serta herba dari sumber alam semula jadi. Jelasnya, amalan kitar semula minyak masak terpakai bukan saja dapat mengurangkan sisa buangan, malah mampu menjana pendapatan lumayan.
Sabun ini boleh dijual sama ada sebagai sabun pencuci pinggan, cuci pakaian, malah sabun serbaguna lah. Secara peribadi saya memang rasa sangat puas hati dan rasa bahagia sangat apabila mereka boleh membantu suami untuk mencari pendapatan tambahan, sekurang-kurangnya untuk belanja diri sendiri.
Menurutnya, usaha kitar semula yang membawa banyak manfaat memerlukan pembabitan masyarakat secara menyeluruh selepas hampir 3 dekad kempen berkenaan diperkenalkan di negara ini. Sehubungan itu, semua pihak perlu memainkan peranan dengan lebih berkesan bagi merealisasikan sasaran penggunaan semula 40% sisa buangan pada 2025. Seterusnya bermula dengan hanya memelihara 3 ekor kambing baka Barbados Black Belly secara suka-suka. Seorang pemuda akhirnya bergelar usahawan yang membekal kambing untuk majlis akikah dan kambing golek. Muhammad Mazlis Syam Salih, 42 tahun, mula memelihara kambing biri-biri yang berasal dari Kepulauan Caribbean itu pada 2018 di Kampung Desa Puri, Tasik Lugur, Pulau Pinang dan kini membiak sehingga 30 ekor. Berikutan permintaan yang tinggi terhadap daging kambing baka Barbados, Muhammad Mazlis mula menjalankan perniagaan secara serius pada 2019 atas nama kambing akikah Pining dan putra kambing golek.
Ujarnya, biri-biri baka Barbados mempunyai peminat yang tersendiri berikutan keenakan dagingnya selain mempunyai rintangan yang tinggi terhadap penyakit.
Saya mula-mula saya buat kambing ni kita hanya suka-suka, tapi bila lama-lama kita buat, akhirnya dia jadi macam satu semangat lain. Semangat lain tu maksud saya dia ada keseronokan. Bila makin banyak kambing ni, dia punya kos untuk makanan tu sangat tinggi. Jadi saya rasa dah ganggu saya punya perbelanjaan harian. So saya fikir macam mana saya nak settle benda ni, takkan saya nak tutup kandang saya kan, tak boleh sebab kita dah start kan. So daripada masalah tu saya cuba cari solution dia. Solution dia saya buat kambing akikah. Sebab saya nak dapatkan end product untuk saya generate income. Kemudian bila saya dah buat lama-lama tu, datang pula idea untuk menghasilkan bisnes kambing golek.
Bagi memastikan kambing kekal sihat dan dagingnya berkualiti, Muhammad Mazli Syam hanya memberi pellet dan rumput liar kepada ternakannya sehari sekali. Dia turut memanfaatkan pemasaran atas talian untuk mempromosi kambing akikah Pinang dan putra kambing golek sehingga berjaya mengukuhkan kedudukan perniagaan di kawasan utara.
Pelanggan yang datang untuk mendapatkan khidmat kambing golek kami ni, dia kebanyakan daripada utara, negeri-negeri di utara. Contoh daripada Perak, kita pernah cover. Pulau Pinang ni memang kita punya majoriti pelanggan lah. Okay, Pulau Pinang, mainland ataupun island memang kita boleh cover semua. Kemudian negeri Kedah, tak kisah Kulim kau sampai Jitra, semua kita cover. Jadi saya punya pelanggan ni kebanyakannya mereka dapat maklumat daripada social media. Sebab kita ada buat marketing juga dalam media-media sosial, menggunakan contoh marketing yang berbayar dalam media sosial semua tu. Sebab apa? Kita nampak pada hari ini bahawa zaman sekarang ni kalau kita nak buat bisnes, perlu ada marketing. Marketing tu memang kita kena guna sistem digital yang ada dalam masa kini lah. Sangat penting dan benda tu relevan dan memberi profit yang baik kepada kita.
Ujar Muhammad Mazli Syam, seekor kambing golek berharga antara RM3,000 hingga RM4,000 dan permintaan untuk menu tersebut sentiasa ada walaupun keadaan ekonomi kurang memberansangkan ketika ini. Justru dia merancang meluaskan perniagaan dengan meningkatkan jumlah induk kambing kepada 100 ekor menjelang hujung tahun depan bagi memenuhi permintaan yang kian meningkat.
Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda. Baik, pada waktu ini saya akan kongsikan pergerakan ataupun prestasi ringgit dan bursa di mana ringgit meneruskan lonjakan ketaranya pada Khamis apabila ditutup pada 4.5675, paras tertinggi dalam setahun selepas mengukuh berbanding dolar Amerika Syarikat selama 9 hari berturut-turut. Pakar menyifatkan perkembangan itu sebagai reaksi pasaran yang positif terhadap kenyataan terbaru mesyuarat Jawatan Kuasa Pasaran Terbuka Persekutuan FOMC Amerika Syarikat. Pada 6 petang Khamis, ringgit melonjak 210 mata asas kepada 4.5675 atau 5710 berbanding dolar Amerika daripada 4.5885 atau 5925 pada akhir urus niaga pada Rabu. Dan pada waktu ini saya akan kongsikan prestasi ringgit untuk hari ini setakat 2 Ogos 2024 di mana ia kini berada pada paras 4.5548 berbanding dolar Amerika. Tertinggi kedua tertinggi kalau kita bandingkan yang tertinggi selepas 9 hari berturut-turut. Kalau seperti yang saya laporkan tadi pada lebih kurang 1 Ogos ia berada paras 4.5530, namun pada hari ini ia menyusut sedikit saja di mana ia berada paras 4.5571 lebih kurang itu. Namun kalau kita dapat lihat antara dalam jangka masa seminggu ini, kita lihat dalam hari bulan 12, 17, 20 dan 25 kita dapat lihat prestasi ringgit itu menyusut. Dan kalau mungkin kalau saya nak jelaskan pergerakan ataupun prestasi ringgit itu, kita dapat lihat kalau aliran itu menurun ia menunjukkan ringgit itu mengukuh, dan kalau aliran ataupun graf itu menaik ia menunjukkan ringgit itu menyusut. Dan setakat pada hari ini ia menunjukkan pengukuhan yang agak signifikan kalau kita bandingkan untuk pasca mesyuarat Jawatan Kuasa Amerika Syarikat FOMC seperti yang kita laporkan tadi dan juga kita telah bincangkan bersama pakar ekonomi dari MIDF Research awal pagi tadi. Baik, saya akan kongsikan juga pergerakan ringgit berbanding dengan dolar Amerika. Kalau kita dapat tengok antara perbandingan antara tahun 2020, 2021 sehinggalah tahun ini 2024, kita dapat lihat penyusutan ringgit yang paling ketara yang hampir mencecah 4.8 ringgit adalah pada sekitar 4.776 pada April tahun ini, 22 April. Dan setakat hari ini kita dapat lihat pengukuhan ringgit itu berlaku dan ini menunjukkan prestasi ataupun trajektori yang positif untuk prestasi ringgit pada setakat ini. Dan ini adalah secara ringkasannya bagaimana pergerakan ringgit itu berlaku, dan kita nak tengok juga sekejap bagaimana ringgit itu berlaku untuk dari bulan ke bulan, daripada bulan Mac, bulan Mei, Julai dan sehinggalah bulan Ogos. Kita dapat lihat naik turun ringgit itu sendiri, dan pada April adalah di mana paling kritikal ringgit itu menyusut, dan ini adalah prestasi ringgit berbanding dolar Amerika. Kita nak tengok juga perbandingan ringgit Malaysia antara Singapore dolar, dan untuk setakat hari ini ringgit itu berada paras 3.4099 berbanding dengan dolar Amerika. Kalau kita dapat lihat perbandingan dalam jangka masa setahun itu, di mana ringgit itu menunjukkan peningkatan naik turun antara ringgit Malaysia dan juga Singapore dollar, dan kita akan tunjukkan lagi, mungkin ada masalah teknikal kat sini, tapi kita dapat lihat bagaimana pergerakan ringgit itu kalau kita bandingkan dengan dolar Amerika dan juga dolar Singapura. Ringgit itu menunjukkan pengukuhan yang agak signifikan. Baik, saya akan teruskan dengan pergerakan bursa ataupun prestasi bursa, di mana saham di Bursa Malaysia ditutup kebanyakannya rendah pada Khamis selepas selesai sesi dagangan yang hambar seiring dengan prestasi suram dalam pasaran serantau, dan indeks Nikkei 225 susut 2.49% kepada 38,126.33. Indeks Hang Seng Hong Kong turun 0.23% kepada 17,304.96, dan indeks STI Singapura merosot 1.04% kepada 3,419.84, dan pada 5 petang FTSE Bursa Malaysia KLCI FBM KLCI merosot 1.32 mata atau 0.08% kepada 1,624.25 daripada 1,625.57 ketika ditutup pada Rabu. Baik, untuk hari ini, setakat hari ini saya akan kongsikan pergerakan bursa saham di mana ia menunjukkan, baik, saya refresh terlebih dahulu. Okey. Inilah yang berlaku untuk teknologi kita, tak apa. Kita akan teruskan dengan Bursa Saham Malaysia dalam jangka 5 hari. Saya akan tunjukkan bagaimana untuk setakat jam 9 suku ataupun 9.14 pagi, ia berada paras 1,614.35 mata. Dia menunjukkan penurunan sebanyak 9.90 indeks mata dan penurunan sebanyak 0.61%. Dan ini adalah dalam jangka masa seminggu bermula hari Isnin, Selasa, Rabu, Khamis dan sehingga hari ini Jumaat. Prestasi bursa saham menurun sehingga ke paras 1,614. Kalau semalam saya tunjukkan lebih kurang 1,620, dan hari ini menunjukkan sedikit penyusutan atas beberapa sektor ataupun faktor tertentu. Baik, itu adalah sekitar untuk 5 hari. Saya boleh tunjukkan dalam jangka masa setahun. Dalam jangka masa setahun, kita dapat saksikan pergerakan naik turun bursa saham atau FBM KLCI yang berlegar-legar antara 1,610 dan 1,640. Dan kita dapat lihat dalam jangka 1 bulan ini, bermula 8 Julai sehinggalah hari ini, kita dapat lihat prestasi FBM KLCI berada dalam trajektori yang positif ataupun prestasi yang meningkat sebenarnya. Namun hari ini menunjukkan sedikit penyusutan, namun walaupun tidak banyak tapi sedikit masih lagi dalam melebihi 1,600 mata. Dan ini adalah sedikit rangkuman ataupun sedikit perkongsian berkenaan dengan pergerakan dan juga prestasi ringgit dan bursa setakat hari ini 2 Ogos 2024. Dan untuk perkembangan seterusnya, di mana Bank of England cut interest rates from a 16-year high on Thursday after a narrow vote in favour from policymakers divided over whether inflation pressures had eased sufficiently. Governor Andrew Bailey, who led the 5-4 decision to lower rates by a quarter point to 5%, said the BOE's Monetary Policy Committee would move cautiously going forward.
Now, at the same time, the UK economy has been stronger in recent months, and this is very welcome too. But it does add to the risk that inflation could be higher than we expected if we cut interest rates too much or too quickly. And despite easing, services price inflation and domestic inflationary pressures do remain elevated. So we need to make sure that inflation stays low. And the best and most sustainable contribution that monetary policy can make to growth and prosperity is to ensure low and stable inflation, and an economy where people can plan for the future with confidence and in which money holds its value. And we have truly come a long way in returning inflation to target.
Thursday's decision was in line with the forecast in a Reuters poll of economists, but financial markets had only seen just over a 60% chance of a cut. Rates have been on hold for almost a full year, the longest period rates have been left unchanged at the peak of a BOE tightening cycle since 2001. And this is the first cut in rates since March 2020 at the first start of the COVID-19 pandemic. In June, the BOE voted 7-2 to keep rates on hold, and minutes of the most recent meeting showed the decision to cut rates had been finely balanced for some members, echoing the language used previously when rates were kept unchanged.
All right, we have more update after this. We go for a short break right back after this with Tehmina Kaoosji.
Malaysia sebenarnya berada di kedudukan kedua terburuk di dunia berkaitan keseimbangan hidup dan kerja.
LRT3 sudah akan mula beroperasi suku ketiga 2025. Kerja-kerja fizikal dan penstrukturan sudah mencecah 95%.
KPM sebenarnya sedang memperincikan cadangan untuk menyediakan allowance kos sara hidup tingkatan 6.
Libat urus antara umat Islam dan agama lain penting supaya dapat mengelakkan ataupun membawa kepada Islamofobia.
We are in the heart of Paris to mark the beginning of an extraordinary event that simultaneously transcends borders, inspires generations and brings the world together. We've got to look forward to these games with excitement and anticipation.
What can we expect? It is the athletes that will be the stars of the show.
Mere moments can stimulate goosebumps on every arm and tears in every eye. It moves us, it rouses the next generation. It's going to be a journey. We'll witness moments of triumph, of joy and inspiration, and athletes will push the limits of human potential.
Just the pure class from the Malaysians.
We are about to witness one of the greatest shows on earth.
Welcome to the largest multi-sport event in the world. Welcome to the Games of the 33rd Olympiad.
Saksikan atlet Olimpik terhebat dengan liputan langsung paling komprehensif. Hanya di Astro.
Kerajaan akan terus mempertahankan setiap inci kedaulatan negara dan tidak sesekali akan bertolak ansur terhadap sebarang tuntutan daripada pihak-pihak tertentu.
Negara perlu mengurangkan kebergantungan kepada pekerja asing berkemahiran rendah. Pertubuhan Kemanusiaan Antarabangsa Malaysia MHO menggesa Kementerian Kesihatan menjalankan siasatan berhubung dakwaan kewujudan sebuah klinik kosmetik yang dikendalikan doktor palsu di Monkiara.
Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Tehmina Kaoosji. Niaga Spotlight goes through the week in business and future affairs, market watch, industries, analysis and insights. We've got you covered right here on Niaga Spotlight. Well, today on analysis and also kicking off Merdeka month for us here on Niaga Spotlight, we are covering the very interesting topic of conserving Harimau Malaya. So, allow me to share a couple of factoids before we get started with the segment. Of course, the Malayan tiger, Harimau Malaya, was recognized as its own subspecies. This was back in 2004. However, it is considered the national animal of Malaysia, and this is actually despite the fact that there is no official law or even declaration. So true to its name though, Malayan tigers are a symbol of not just courage, but also strength. They are represented in our various national emblems, including, of course, for the police force of Malaysia, for the national football team, and more importantly, also our Jata Negara, the Malaysian coat of arms. So at the same time, though, it is increasingly concerning. There are fewer than 150 Malayan tigers left in the wild. The most recent report of a tiger which was found dead in Bentong is also the third such death in 6 months, and also the fifth in 2024 that we know of. So this sharp decline in wild tiger numbers is deeply concerning, as tiger conservation also, of course, maintains ecological sustainability in Malaysia. Dr. Henry Chan, who's Conservation Director with WWF, which stands for the Worldwide Fund for Nature in Malaysia, joins me now in the studio to discuss conserving Harimau Malaya. Dr. Henry, how are you doing today?
Thank you, ma'am.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us here today. So, Dr. Henry, I would love for you to start off by painting us a picture all about how exactly WWF's Malayan Tiger Project actually got started, from its roots right to where we are today now.
So thank you. Sometimes in the mid-2010s, we have found that there are human wildlife conflicts in Kelantan. And as we examined the study, we found that it's due to the lack of prey, lack of habitat, that the tigers has gone out of their natural habitat to look for food. And eventually, as we work with the state agencies, we found that there is a large forest in Upper Perak, which is the Belum complex, and we decided to work in that place because tigers needs natural habitat. They need large area for protected areas. So that's how we began to work with the government of Perak to support tiger conservation in that place.
Fantastic. So all the way from the roots in Belum, right, Dr. Henry? Now tell me about why the fact that outside of the tiger being so visible as a national symbol, we see it for the Royal Malaysian Police, we see it everywhere we look in children's animations, and of course the Malaysian contingent is of course currently representing us right now at the Paris 2024 Olympics, carrying those same tiger stripes. But why is it so essential that we actually need to look at conservation as a necessity, not something which is nice to have?
Well, I think it's important that we understand why forest is very important, which is a natural habitat for wildlife. Forest provides the services that we need. Actually, forests up in the mountains induce rain clouds, and clouds then gather moisture and the rain. And this is a source of water into the rivers. Forest also helps to regulate climate.
That's right.
If you go under the trees, you feel very cool. Why is it so? Because the trees provide the shade, and the trees and the leaves absorb sunlight, and this sunlight is then as an energy to convert carbon dioxide, the air that we breathe, into oxygen and water as well. So you can imagine if the whole place is full of trees with different layers, it cools on the atmosphere, it provides the services that we need. And most important of all, the trees in the forest provide habitat for wildlife, such as tigers.
Exactly. So focusing back on the tigers, it was also very recently Global Tiger Day. Tell us a little bit more about WWF's Global Tiger Day celebrations. How did that go?
So this year, which we organized last week, we organized a run for tigers, and we have 1,200 people, way above our expectation of 1,000. In that event, we have our minister, Minister Nik Nasmi from the Ministry of Natural Resource and the Environment to be there with us. We have speeches to talk to the participants how important tiger is, how tigers is important for the environment, and how the environment in turn is important for our well-being. So we're happy that it turned out to be very well organized.
Fantastic. So we're very glad to see that the support is happening, at least at the annual days. But at the same time though, Dr. Henry, now it's time to dig deeper. So the future, of course, of our Malaysian tigers is at stake because their existence is threatened by several factors. I actually want to go through them quite systematically and methodically so that we can try and understand at each point there are actually critical investments as well as collaborations and recognition that will help to make it build towards a best outcome, right? So let's start by beginning about the role of poaching and illegal wildlife trade.
So first of all, we need to understand what causes the extinction of tigers. As you mentioned earlier, in Malaysia, the official record is less than 150 individuals.
That's right.
So,
may I ask you, originally speaking, at least from the time we started having modern historical records, how many estimated tigers were there?
So as a reference, in 1950s, before we become an independent state, there was an estimate of about 3,000 individual tigers in Peninsular Malaysia.
Just in Peninsula?
Yes, this is based on the estimate of forest that we had then, and the amount of forest that can harbour such tiger population.
Understood, exactly. So coming back into the fact you were mentioning, so there's about 150 on record now, and let's go into the poaching and wildlife trade.
Yes, so tigers is a highly favoured luxurious food item in the Far East. In some communities, if you want to treat people, you serve them with tiger meat. It's very exotic. Just like among our own community, you serve with shark fins. But it's not only used as a food, but tigers is also seen as an aphrodisiac. The whiskers can be used for acupuncture, the bones, strengthen male virility and so forth. So it creates huge demand among certain sectors of society in the Far East, and they pay a lot of money. So if you catch a tiger in the forest, it's considered as a jackpot. We learned that among the black market one male tiger may fetch up to $500,000 ringgit in our on land. But when it goes into China, Vietnam, the prices escalate. Yeah. So tiger is part of the international wildlife trade, and the demand and the price that is available attracts poachers to come in. And we do have professional poachers coming from the Indo-Chinese countries, and they spend months in the forest. And these guys are real professional. Even our own orang asli rangers would have difficulties, looking for them. And these guys spend months in the forest.
Correct. So the only way in which to basically form a protective layer for the remaining tigers is to have, of course, your anti-poaching patrol officers. There's Project Stampede. Tell me more about that.
Right. So we call Project Stampede. It's basically to flood the forest. Yes, to flood the forest and have rangers continuously be positioned to patrol the forest. And in Belum itself, in Royal Belum State Park and the surrounding forest called Temenggor, we have 15 tiger teams. And each team will spend 15 days in a month living in the forest, trekking throughout the forest. And over the last few years, they have trekked thousands and thousands of kilometers. And they're all very vigilant. They're looking out for snares, signs of poachers. And if they do, they remove them. And if they see any signs of poachers, because we are not authorized to do anything with the poachers, we will then report back to the authority, who would then immediately, if possible, to come and apprehend those poachers.
And how are these anti-poaching experts, their training, etc.? Of course, it involves financial allocations. Where does WWF actually find the funds for this?
Okay, so each team would have 5 persons. So you got a team leader, and they're supported by 4 other rangers. And these guys spend 15 days in a month. Typically, we spend about 100,000 per year to support one team. So we're very grateful for foundations like Maybank Foundation, who supports us. We also have other organizations, a variety of them. That includes our international support from our sister organizations in Poland, in Switzerland, in the US, and so forth.
Fantastic. And it's also very encouraging to know that Pahang also, as a state, they have actually received an EFT, Ecological Fiscal Transfer, for biodiversity conservation, amounting to almost 40 million ringgit. So moving along from there, Dr. Henry, I also wanted to focus now on looking at habitat loss, because when you have deforestation and you have fragmentation of the tiger's habitat itself, it also has ramifications that are like a domino effect.
Yes.
Tell me about this.
Right. So earlier you asked me when is the time reference, right? So 1950. The years before independence, we have huge forests in Malaya. Only the western part of Malaya will be opened up for rubber plantations and tin mines and so forth. But basically, the whole of Peninsula Malaysia is covered by forests, and this is the home of the tigers. Now, as we achieve independence in the 70s, we need to build an economy specific for the landless peasants, in the Malay heartlands. So government in the 1970s to create land for these landless peasants, they then open up forests, convert them into plantations, and resettle them. So if you drive all the way from Johor Bahru through the old road going up to Gua Musang in Kelantan, you find palm oil plantations crisscrossing Peninsula Malaysia. And this has resulted in the deforestation and fragmentation of forests. Of course, the basic reason is to create economy, but the consequence, the unintended consequence, is that now our tigers have lost habitat, and as a result, the population has shrunk, and this is compounded by the fact that they are highly priced in the international wildlife trade. So to tackle this tiger loss, we must address these two in parallel manner. Stem up poaching and make sure that habitat remains and get reconnected.
Exactly. So understanding the fact that it's going to be quite a challenge for the habitat to be reconnected, tell us about the role of especially palm oil, as you were mentioning. Now, palm oil, of course, is an essential commodity for the Malaysian global market as well as for local industrial players. How do we actually reconcile it harmoniously with the fact that properly managed, it can lead to the tiger's habitat being protected?
Yes. So for that, we have to seek inspiration and experience of the work that we have done elsewhere. Within Malaysia itself, in the state of Sabah. So in Sabah, we have pioneered a program called the Living Landscape Approach. The Living Landscape Approach has got 3 principles. It's called protect, produce, and restore.
Right.
So in Sabah, like in Peninsular Malaysia as well, they have large forests where they have protected it. So we identify such forests, which is important for wildlife conservation, for the orangutans, for the elephants, and for the services that this forest provides. So we work with the agencies and the authorities to protect them. This is a protect pillar. Now, as in Peninsular Malaysia, many part of our land has been converted into palm oil plantations. So the idea then is to work with the palm oil plantations in such important areas that you have a responsibility to protect the forest. One way to do so is to ensure that no poachers go through your plantations and into the forest. So they act as a shield. In Malaya, called perisai. So the first defense from poachers entering the forest. Secondly, as we mentioned earlier, the palm oil plantations is also a cause for the fragmentation of forests. So wherever there are 2 forest blocks, they are important for wildlife to cross across, but this has been fragmented by the plantations through scientific survey of the wildlife, like the orangutan and elephants.
Right.
Then, wherever they have evidence that this place has been used for the movement, we then ask the companies to set this land aside for wildlife corridor. So we reconnect them. And we have companies who actually have done that, right? Tighted land, we set aside. So this is the ideas that we are now bringing over to Peninsular Malaysia to look into how forests that are important for wildlife and for tigers, they are fragmented, can be reconnected through the palm oil plantations.
Fantastic. So like a lot of behind the scenes work is occurring. At the same time though, Dr. Henry, I'd just like your initial thoughts first. Do you feel that the recent spike in tiger deaths that we have been seeing visibly covered in news headlines, especially this year, is it indicative of broader ecological degradation happening in the depths of the forest?
I think there are two observations. The first is that the causes of human-wildlife conflicts and death is associated in places that clearly they are deforestation. Secondly, with the warming of the environment, the tigers and the prey may need to go to new places, and therefore, when they move, they see a road, and typically wildlife, when they cross at night time, when it happens that when the car is passing through with the highlight.
Yes, quite often these are early morning, late night crashes.
Right. And when they got this highlight, like we got blinded.
Deer in headlights, but tiger in headlights.
Same thing as well, right? They just got blinded, they become immobilized, and they get freeze on the road. And the car is too late to stop, and they hit them, and this way the road kill happens.
That's right.
But then we don't have we don't have the data to pinpoint that it's due to climate change or warming of climate that result in the movement of animals. But I think...
But we have been experiencing, in fact, a few weeks ago on Sunday, it was actually globally the hottest it's ever been on that specific day of July.
Yes, that's right. In fact, over the last week or so, I'm constantly going to water my plants because I started to plant trees in the land behind my house. And yeah, it could be true, but I think we need to do more. We need to basically do more research on that, because we haven't done that exercise to link up this data, warming environment with movement of the wildlife.
Understood. Some thoughts there. Now moving into a different sector, which is of course looking at availability of prey. Now that obviously, the tiger being a big cat, the biggest one that we have in our jungles, that is an essential for their survivability. Tell us a little bit more about the overhunting of the tiger's main prey and how we can actually look at remedying this in stages.
Okay. So when we talk about hunting, we need to look into two aspects. One is the hunting by hunters to go to the forest and hunt using guns.
Right.
And the other is the putting of snares to trap the wildlife. So let us address the second part, the snares first. So when poachers put up snares in the forest, whenever and they put, these are professional poachers, right? They know movement of animals, they see tracks, they see signs that this is the areas frequented by wildlife. So wherever wildlife come across the snares, and inevitably they'll step on them and they'll be trapped. The snares are not, they don't select, right? Any animals that go through, they will be trapped.
It could be a wild boar, it could be a tiger.
It could be a deer and so on. So this has resulted in the loss of the wildlife. Now, on the hunting part, they are mainly done by our own local people for food and consumption. These are weekend sports hunters, and typically they don't go too far into the forest like the poachers. They'll spend about 2 or 3 nights in the forest over the weekend, and they use guns. So the extent of the impact between the two, obviously snaring is much more problematic as compared to hunting.
Understood. Could you tell me a little bit more about WWF's good work to basically reintroduce to the ecosystem some of the traditional prey of the Malayan tiger?
Yeah, so the most important thing is sambal deer. So sambal deer being the biggest
deer
prey,
species.
of the deer species and biggest prey animal in the forest, has also declined over the last decades or so, due to the snaring crisis. So we are working with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Penghilitan, the Department of Wildlife and National Parks, to reintroduce. So we have a few contractors who have been given licenses to breed the sambal deer, but sambal deer takes a long time because they're big. Take a year and a half, for them to breed again. So once you have got the small deers, they have to be grown into adulthood, then they will be reintroduced into the wild, say in Rehoboam State Park. You need to create pastures for them at the place, so that they in turn will propagate, and as the population increases, then they will go into the wild, and this way they become part of the natural ecosystem, and we hope this will become food for the tigers, and they will bring up the food stock for the tigers. Secondly, wild boar is also been hunted as a prey. But because of the African swine flu that swept all of Borneo and the last few years in Peninsula as well, so wild boar has also, that's right. So there's also an effort now to reintroduce wild boar back into the forest.
So lots of efforts being made for prey augmentation as we see it.
Yes.
And perhaps moving towards 2030, which is just 6 short years away. What are your thoughts on how our efforts are going to show fruit in the near future, Dr. Henry?
But let me go back to the onset on the problems, right? So first of all, it's a wildlife trade. Tigers has a huge demand, so you need concerted effort involving the police, the intelligence. You need to have Interpol. You work with organizations like Traffic, who are actually getting intelligence across the global trade.
Yes.
And we all know that the syndicate that are involved in wildlife crime is not just looking for wildlife. They are also involved in illegal arms smuggling, drugs and so forth, and human trafficking. So basically this is a crime. Yes, it's an organized crime throughout the world. So to track the mastermind and so on, you need to use the AMLA, the Anti-Money Laundering Act, to trace transaction and so forth. So this is really complicated. So this one. The second is, as I said along, is habitat management. It's an economic driver of the country that you need to provide jobs and so on, right? And then you got the federal-state relationship, because the ministries sets the direction and the policies, but the state owns the resources, which is land, water, and forest. So that federal-state relationship need to be addressed as well. So back in 2019, we had the opportunity to have an audience with the Conference of Rulers. So you might know that our royal patron is the Sultan of Perak.
That's correct.
So he consented for us to go and have the audience. But we went to see the Sultan of Kedah, who was the chair of the conference then, and he also consented to be brought to the presence. So in the Conference of Rulers, we shared the plight of the tigers. we asked Tuanku, please don't allow our tigers to face the fate of the rhinoceros, which we have lost, as well as the leatherback turtles. So, and we call on the Tuankus that we need the highest political will in the country, like in India, Nepal, and Bhutan, where the populations have increased. So we need a whole national concerted effort to be chaired by the Prime Minister. Yeah, and so that was done, and we believe that that 2019 was a turning point, and subsequently we see Ministry of Finance providing budget, the national budget of 100 million, more than 100 million every year. Just last year also, Minister of Finance, Prime Minister announced the allocation of biodiversity sukuk, biodiversity bond based on Islamic Sharia principles of 1 billion ringgit. So we believe this creates long-term sustainable finance to support the tiger conservation work. So this government effort needs to be recognized, and that it requires whole of society effort. Now back to your point about 2030. So tigers is just one species that we see getting extinct in Malaysia, but there are numerous other species that are lost throughout the world. Yeah. So the global community, so now I'm talking about at the international front now.
Those levels.
Yeah, at the global level, you have the Convention on Biological Diversity. They have developed with a 10-year global biodiversity framework, the GBF. Yeah, and it's very famous. It's called 30 by 30. So 30 is the year 2030, and the 30% of planet Earth needs to be conserved. So important areas in every country for wildlife conservation, for ecosystem services, and so on should be conserved, protected, and well managed. Wherever areas are important but they are degraded, we need to restore them. So these are 30%, and also we have targets to work with the agribusiness. In this case, palm oil plantation, timber, and so on.
Yes, not leaving behind the smallholders either.
Yeah, and one very important target is target 19, which is for the global north, the richer countries, to provide funding of $250 billion per year, yeah, to support conservation worldwide. So
what would Malaysia's portion potentially be from that 250B?
Well, this is a pledge, yeah,
Sure.
of the government that the global south and the developing countries demanded of the global north to support. So how much is needed? So I go back to our tiger conservation. So earlier I mentioned about one team of 5 people requires about 100,000 to take care of the forest. One team of this 5% ranger would cover 10,000 hectares to effectively patrol them. Our tiger areas is about 2 million hectares. So based on the math, we need about 200 teams. So if you just multiply by the thousands, we need billions of dollars, right?
That's
so,
right.
And hundreds of millions of dollars to support the conservation. When we talk about restoration, it costs a lot more. It's billions that we are needed. Based on our experiences in Sabah, again, we need $1,700 per hectare to undertake restoration. And we need 5 years to do that, because you don't plant trees and let it be, you got to maintain it.
Exactly.
So
at least until they reach initial maturity, 5 years, right?
Yes, that's right. So you need to have identified the actual needs on the ground where they are, and the scale of intervention before you can come up with that. So I just said that at least 10 billion is needed.
And the work does continue.
Yes,
Dr.
over
Henry.
a long-term time frame.
Absolutely. Dr. Henry, thanks for the conversation so far. We take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with Niaga Spotlight.
Lebih banyak aksi sukan mendebarkan secara langsung di Astro Sports Pack. Liga bola sepak terbesar. Liverpool have done it! Pukulan kencang di gelanggang. Kehangatan Liga Perlumbaan. Ikon di green. Dan juara yang bakal tercipta. Stream kesemuanya di sini dengan apa jua cara hanya di Astro.
Masih belum terlewat untuk anda menyinar. Kilauan emas kembali. Warga negara Malaysia berumur 45 tahun ke atas yang berbakat. Sila hadirkan diri ke sesi uji bakat pada tarikh dan lokasi tertera. Bersedialah dengan salah satu daripada lagu wajib berikut. Kami menantikan penyertaan anda. Masa untuk anda menyinar.
Di dalam setiap berita yang dibawa, konteks amat penting. Cara kita mendapat berita kian berubah. Melalui media sosial maupun saluran digital yang lain serta kaca TV. Kami sentiasa membawakan yang tergempar dan terkini.
Kita buat sesuatu yang berbeza.
Berteraskan acuan verifikasi yang diamalkan supaya setiap fakta adalah sahih. Daripada analisis pelbagai sudut yang mendalam, laporan-laporan khas dan perbincangan yang membina negara. Inklusif, suara rakyat kami ajukan. Keseimbangan persepsi kami pastikan. Kerana setiap cerita mempunyai impak yang tersendiri dan perlu dibawa dengan penelitian yang terperinci. Pastikan Astro AWANI menjadi pilihan anda tidak kira di mana sahaja anda berada. Saluran berita paling dipercayai di Malaysia.
Welcome back to Niaga Spotlight, still with me, Tehmina Kaoosji. And today, of course, as part of our Merdeka month specials, we are covering Conserving Harimau Malaya. Dr. Henry Chan, Conservation Director with WWF Malaysia, is in the studios with me. Dr. Henry, to continue the conversation, let's move now into the fact that, of course, WWF Malaysia's tiger conservation work, it consists of several moving components. We have, of course, discussed some of them in depth just earlier. And how are they all designed to overall reduce the threats towards tigers as well as other wildlife which are living in the same landscape? We touched a little bit on it earlier. Let's go deeper into details.
Yes, so broadly, we can define our work into two categories. Number one, as I said earlier, which is the international wildlife trade, and the second is about habitat management. So for international wildlife trade, we have been given the responsibility to help the government of Perak to support tiger conservation in the Belum Temenggong landscapes. This is the upper part of the Perak River that borders with Thailand. So we mentioned about our Project Stampede. We have 15 tiger teams that patrol the forest. Second is we support the Perak State Park Authority to fundraise, not just for ourselves but also for the activities of the park, together with other partners. The second work is to work in terms of the evidence, right? You know, we put so much effort and finances to support the tiger team. What evidence do we have that it actually works, right? So it's based
That's
on
really important, right? Measuring
Exactly.
and then looking at scalability.
Right.
Yeah.
So we need evidence. We are a science-based organization. So what we then do is our second program is on tiger monitoring.
Right.
We set hundreds of camera traps systematically across the forest. And these camera traps, the reason it's called a camera traps is it has a signal. When wildlife passes through the signal, it will trigger them and take a picture.
Right.
And from this, we have millions of images, all kinds of wildlife. And from these images, then our team will then do analysis and use certain methodology to look into the population density and the increasing number of tigers. And so these two things happen. The first is that compared to the baseline year of 2017, when we only had 3 teams, at that point, our teams discovered more than 200 snares in the forest. And as we increased the number to 15 over the last few years, just the last 2 years, we encountered 0 active snares, which is a real success. Because, you know, when as you patrol thousands of kilometers in the forest and don't see snares, you feel very, very happy.
You breathe easier as well,
Yes.
and also looking at the safety of the teams of the orang asli who are involved,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And also the wildlife, right? So with what a trend, animals feel at ease, there's no more trap and so on. And then we also saw evidence of baby tigers. We celebrate, right?
Of course.
Full moon.
They're coming back a little
They're coming
bit.
back. So we have seen a few numbers. Of course, we cannot reveal the numbers, and otherwise, you know, we attract poachers to go to Royal Belum. And as they grow, they become juvenile. So it's really evidence that our effort has come to fruition. So these are the two main things that we do in Robulom, is addressing anti-poaching. Now, the second category of work on habitat management, so we talked about prey augmentation earlier, yeah, so we work with the authorities. We also work with the local orang aslis, and these are the Jahai community. The Jahai is one of the 18th orang asli groups in Peninsular Malaysia, and they are part of the hunting and gathering group, yeah. So you don't resettle them. This is the progressive policy of Malaysia, that when you have got communities that are living in harmony with nature, you are allowed to live with them. Similarly, in Taman Negara, you got the Batek also living there. But as hunters and gatherers, we need to work with them so that they don't go and hunt all kinds of animals for the food. So it's also about looking for alternative and living in the forest. Also, they are in contact with wildlife. Of course, with tigers, avoid them. But you have also got other animals like elephants.
We have seen some conflict in recent years too. Yeah.
Right. So some awareness how to deal with elephants need also be inculcated with them. And as we said earlier, the orang aslis are also our guardians. So we work with them. We're very happy that the European Union gave us a grant of $1 million to train these local communities to become stewards. So this is a very interesting story. We believe that over 5 years, these local communities who are illiterate, they are experts in the forest, and through certain curriculum of poaching, camera traps, and so forth, they will be given a certificate. With a certificate, they can now become employed as a government servant. It's nice, right? You stay at home, you get your salary, and you help to become guardian of the forest. That's the goal. So we work a lot with the orang aslis in that place, and make sure that they themselves are the ears and eyes of us. Yeah.
Exactly. The natural and original stewards of the forest. It's just that now they are officially recognized, and they also earn an income for it. Yeah.
So you got the professional groups, which I say professional because they are given salaries, right, to patrol deep in the forest.
Now. Yeah.
But those other community members, right, those living along the lakes and the rivers, they are the eyes, right? You see anybody who is not supposed to be there, then they are the first line of defense as well.
Early warning system.
Yeah, exactly, yes.
A human early warning system.
They can also be the one who can be involved in restoration, planting trees. They can also be trained to become, the prey augmentation. They can look after wildlife and so on. So just imagine that now in the national park, the park authorities actually empowers the local community to become guardian of the national park. This is the best example we can show to the world.
Exactly. So our best example that we are already working on very deeply though, there's one last area I'd like for us to focus on before we end out our discussion. Dr. Henry, I want to talk more about more strategies for increasing our ecological corridors and habitat connectivity. I'll actually move to perhaps asking for your opinion before we begin on two of the more recent incidents which were also highlighting other huge species which are impacting. You also have other big cats like panthers. A driver recently hit one on the East Coast Expressway. There was also the issue of the 2 young children, unfortunately toddlers, who passed away after ingesting, snacks that were laced with rat poison that was intended for wildlife in the area.
Yeah, the case of the panther in the East Coast Expressway, right, is actually a new road, and this is where they're still forested in the northeast of Peninsular Malaysia. So similar to tigers and other wildlife, when they cross the road, at that time they got blinded by the car's light, and so they get crashed, right. So again, we talk about the necessity to ensure that our roads are built. We call wildlife-friendly infrastructure. The most important thing is that to avoid such occurrence of human-wildlife conflict is to avoid the road to go into forests. Now we do recognize that infrastructure like this, government need to acquire land, and compensate. It's very expensive. Therefore, they go to the forest, which you don't have to compensate. But the consequence is that then the conflict with wildlife comes very true. So wherever road cannot be aligned out of forest, then what they can do is to do more survey in the forest, identify where are the places that wildlife used to go. The biologists will tell you that there are theories. I'm an anthropologist. I used to live with hunter-gatherers. We know where are the places that wildlife tend to go. And if you got road across in those places, then you build what we call viaducts, where you have the road, elevated highway, then animals can go underneath, can go through. So this is one way to mitigate the human-wildlife conflicts. The second incident is there was a case of toddlers who died somewhere in Kulim.
That's right, Kulim and Kedah.
Yeah, they ate red poisonless snakes, which is to again kill wildlife. So this accident can be avoided, right? But the question then is, why do villagers put this poison in the farms? Again, it goes back to what we said earlier. It's about deforestation. It's about human population opening up forests and settling into those areas. Therefore, the encounter is very close.
Correct.
Now, to address that, yesterday I just attended a newly launched roadmap on planetary health by the Minister of Mosti, and the planetary health talks about the planetary boundaries and how we human beings need to live in harmony with nature. So it's all about having sufficient forest areas protected, and wherever there's place that humans come into contact with wildlife, there should be systems in which the contact is reduced. So in the context of Malaysia now, which I think provides an example again of how planetary health can be managed in Malaysia is, look, we go back to the fundamentals, right? So Malaysia has pledged at least half the country, at least 50% to be forest cover. But this forest cannot be here and there, right? You don't want to have scattered islands, patches of forest, but there must be large contiguous blocks of forest.
That's right.
And they must be interconnected. So the Central Forest Spine Master Plan is that plan. It connects all the large forests together, and wherever there are fragmentation, they attempt to reconnect them. Right. And so these linkages are very important. Does this work? So again, we are inspired by our work done by our colleagues in other countries. So in a place bordering India and Nepal, the Tarai landscape, the Tarai arc, is where there are a series of protected areas. They are connected, but they're also fragmented like we in Malaysia. So what the government do is to allocate spaces between these protected areas and make its wildlife corridors. And these wildlife corridors are restored back, and they get local communities to help undertake restoration and patrol the forest. Now, when the tiger population in this national park has increased, the juveniles would look for new places, and this created forest becomes a link to other forests. So these other forests that were once empty, no tigers, have now been populated with tigers. So that's why India and Nepal has increased the tiger population. So evidence show that you can do it when you have these forests that are interconnected. So we need to look into such kind of master plan. And today there are plantations. So I talk a lot with palm oil industries. I said that, look, you need to do this, but we do not expect you to cut down the palm trees and plant them. But you know that this is the part of the plan. So that in your replanting exercise, then you consider whether this plants need to be planted back into the forest. In some areas, right, the river bank, you're not even supposed to plant palm oil to the edge of the rivers. So by law, you should have followed the law. Yeah. So this allows then places that within the Central Forest Spine Master Plan, which today we see is impossible to reconnect them, but we know it can be done through time, through sustainable palm oil industries. And we believe that it's also the responsibility of the palm oil as a sector in Malaysia to undertake this, because they are the ones who actually were the reason why our forests have been fragmented. So today, it is their responsibility, and it also benefits them, because the vision is, if the palm oil is being produced in tiger-friendly landscapes, can the palm oil product not have a stem of tiger there? And then it can reach to the premium markets.
Exactly. So keeping all these wider goals in mind. Dr. Henry, it's been such an insightful and enriching conversation. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Well, that's all we have time for today on Niaga Spotlight. We'll see you again next week with more business analysis and insights. I'm Tehmina Kaoosji signing off for now. Here's to a productive week ahead.
Di dalam setiap berita yang dibawa, konteks amat penting. Cara kita mendapat berita kian berubah. Melalui media sosial maupun saluran digital yang lain serta kaca TV. Kami sentiasa membawakan yang tergempar dan terkini.
Kita buat sesuatu yang berbeza.
Berteraskan acuan verifikasi yang diamalkan supaya setiap fakta adalah sahih. Daripada analisis pelbagai sudut yang mendalam, laporan-laporan khas dan perbincangan yang membina negara. Inklusif, suara rakyat kami ajukan. Keseimbangan persepsi kami pastikan. Kerana setiap cerita mempunyai impak yang tersendiri dan perlu dibawa dengan penelitian yang terperinci. Pastikan Astro AWANI menjadi pilihan anda tidak kira di mana sahaja anda berada. Saluran berita paling dipercayai di Malaysia.
University Malaya UM is expected to offer a cardiothoracic specialist training course this October.
There will be no U-turn on the implementation of the Vehicle Entry Permit VEP for all foreign vehicles entering Malaysia from Singapore.
Diesel sales at petrol stations have decreased by 30% within the first week of the fuel subsidy rationalisation on June 10th.
When it comes to the FedEx Cup playoffs, there is a force that propels the best to greatness. Having the edge from within. Pushing the limit is what separates the champion from the rest. And as the game's best step into the spotlight, they have their sights set on one thing. The PGA Tour's ultimate prize. The FedEx Cup playoffs are coming.
No matter what happens, you'll always be there for me, right?
GXBank, Anthony Tan, Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif Grab Holdings, Pengurusi Tinggi GXBank, Pegawai Kanan, rakan-rakan yang saya muliakan. Terima kasih atas kesempatan diberikan oleh GXBank untuk bersama di pejabat dan meluncurkan pusat kecemerlangan. Program ataupun acara peluncuran hari ini agak bersejarah kerana ia menandakan suatu perubahan ketara bukan sahaja dalam sistem perbankan tetapi tentang dasar digital negara. Negara harus beralih ke satu tahap yang lebih maju dan meyakinkan dalam bidang yang baru, iaitu menerokai suatu yang baru, yang belum dikuasai, dimiliki dan difahami oleh masyarakat terbanyak. Jadi cabaran untuk kita tinggi. Jadi tadi Zaitun sebut tentang semangat khidmat yang ditekankan juga oleh Lao Tse. Dan saya dalam masa terluang di Sungai Buloh banyak juga baca Lao Tse. Dan di antara yang ditekankan ialah bahawa suatu pengembaraan 1000 batu itu akan bermula dengan satu langkah. A journey of 1,000 miles will begin with one step, one li. Okay? So yang Chinese experts can correct me. I don't think Anthony Lan, he has the expertise. But anyway, to those who are familiar would understand this. Maknanya langkah pertama itu penting. Matlamat itu jelas. Ya. Tetapi kita ini hidup dalam apa yang disebut post-normal times. Zaman pasca normal. Ya, kita tahu dan saya selalu ungkapkan tentang keadaannya lebih kompleks, ya, penuh dengan pertembungan, pertentangan, contradictions, ya, dan dikenali dengan suatu yang chaotic, kacau balau. Tetapi dalam konteks ini, dalam isu pembangunan yang harus mampan atau sustainable, kita bicara soal perubahan itu harus pantas. Betul, journey is 1,000 miles. Tapi kalau kita ikut pace lama, kita akan ketinggalan. Kita boleh mula awal, tetapi kita akan ketinggalan kalau tidak dalam kecepatan atau kepantasan yang diperlukan. So in post-normal times, one of the major core challenges is the pace of change. The pace must be very fast, unprecedented, because if you use the normal pace to affect change, we will lose out. Because the world is far more competitive and the challenge is far more complex. And it requires innovations and additional effort. Dalam konteks ini, oleh yang demikian, saya bangga dengan GXBank kerana telah bermula dan mula dengan tahap yang lebih pantas seperti mana yang diunjurkan speknya. Jadi saya ucap tahniah kepada semua rakan-rakan. Ini maknanya suatu hal yang harus difahami. Tidak boleh kita bicara tentang transformasi digital ataupun yang selalu disebut plan perindustrian baru ataupun transisi tenaga. Dan tetapi setelah kita terima semua konsep itu, dasar yang baru, tapi kerangka boleh disiapkan tetapi kepantasannya itu tidak seperti mana yang diharapkan. Jadi sebab itu saya kata pace, maknanya mempercepatkan itu sangat perlu. Kalau ikut teori-teori, siapa yang agak biasa dengan teori-teori perubahan, modernization and social change, katalah disebut oleh W.W. Rostowian theory of change, itu dianggap ada tahap-tahapnya. Tahap tradisional, pertanian, kedua industri. Ya. Tetapi kalau kita ikut unjuran itu seperti mana yang berlaku, kita akan ketinggalan. Jadi dalam period apa yang disebut post-normal times, termasuk dalam soal digital, pace itu mesti leapfrog. Dan ini kita saksikan di antara idea, banyak juga yang ditekankan oleh Tuan Zafrul dan Gobin, iaitu memberikan apa sahaja kerjasama yang mungkin oleh kerajaan dan jentera termasuk Bank Negara, Kementerian Kewangan, MITI, digital, supaya tidak lagi terhambat dan terhalang dengan peraturan-peraturan dan proses-proses lama untuk menghadapi cabaran lama. Sebab itu arahan kita dalam soal digital bank ini ialah memberikan laluan yang pantas supaya mereka dapat bergerak maju dalam masa yang lebih cepat. Kita bukan paling awal. Di rantau ini, Malaysia bukan paling awal. Jadi dalam beberapa aspek kita agak ketinggalan. Jadi cabaran untuk GXBank dengan bank-bank digital yang telah diluluskan ialah melakukan perubahan itu dalam kadar yang lebih laju dan pesat, dan saya yakin Zaitun dan seluruh keluarga GXBank ini akan menyambut cabaran ini dengan berani, dengan meyakinkan. Nah, prasarana sudah sediakan dan kita bersyukur alhamdulillah kerana angka-angka dan data pertumbuhan, pelaburan, mengawal inflasi, pengangguran itu cukup membanggakan. Ya. Dan kita mencatat sesuatu yang meletakkan kita mampu berdaya saing. Negara juga telah dikenali sekarang sebagai di antara hub landasan untuk semikonduktor yang diterima oleh Eropah, Amerika, negara China. Dan kita mengambil satu pendekatan yang lebih terbuka. dasar negara kita dasar yang terbuka. Apa sahaja yang boleh menyelamatkan bangsa dan negara. Apa sahaja yang boleh memacu pertumbuhan dengan lebih segar. Dan apa sahaja kerangka yang boleh memungkinkan kita berdagang dengan semua negara dan mempertahankan keamanan dan ekonomi, kepentingan ekonomi negara, kita akan terbuka. Kita mengambil sikap yang cukup terbuka untuk bersahabat dengan semua dan berdagang dengan semua asalkan kita kekal sebagai negara yang bebas, merdeka dan berdaulat. Jadi, sudah lihat umpamanya kita kekal hubungan tradisional dengan Amerika Syarikat dengan pelaburan yang tinggi kerana pelaburan dalam segi soal umpamanya pendigitalan awal itu banyak pelaburan di Amerika, kemudian dengan Eropah. Saya dalam beberapa minggu lagi akan meluncurkan suatu pusat industri bersama dengan Tugu Zafrul di Kulim High Tech, Infineon, pelaburan terbesar Infineon di luar Jerman, itu dipilih Malaysia kerana sistem politik yang stabil, dasar ekonomi yang jelas dan workforce seperti saudara dan anak-anak yang menunjukkan kapasiti dan disiplin yang sangat baik. Ini menyebabkan pelabur lebih yakin. Di samping itu, kita sekarang telah meneroka dan ada hubungan yang sangat istimewa dengan negara China. Selain daripada Jepun, Korea yang juga dianggap tradisional. Dan ini menguntungkan kita. Kita jelas dasar kita dan kita bersahabat dan mengambil sikap yang bebas. Beberapa minggu lagi saya akan ke Vladivostok. Tahu di mana? Ya, di pinggir Rusia. Untuk menerima undangan Presiden Putin berbincang soal kerjasama ekonomi, meletakkan kita sebagai di antara negara yang pertahankan pendirian kita yang bebas dan tidak mengambil sikap untuk bermusuh dengan sesiapa. Tapi prinsip kita jelas. Kita tetap pertahankan kebebasan, kita tetap menolak kezaliman, kita tetap tidak mengizinkan mana-mana negara atau kelompok menindas, menghina dan membunuh rakyat yang tidak berdosa. Sebab itu dalam soal Gaza umpamanya, kita bersuara dengan cukup lantang kerana prinsip kemanusiaan. There's no point talking about independence and humanity when you are blinded to the gross atrocities inflicted upon innocent people, women and children elsewhere, regardless whether the victims are Muslims or Christians or Hindus or Buddhists. That is the position that Malaysia takes and that we will adhere to strongly without compromise. Apa kena mengena dengan GXBank ini? Kena mengenanya kerana Tuk Zaitun sebut dia inklusif. Dia jamin ada penyertaan, participation yang lebih jelas. Apa arti demokrasi? Apa arti bank? Apa arti digital bank? Kalau dia tidak menjamin penyertaan dari semua peringkat. Konsep bank tradisional itu apa? Ialah penglibatan kelompok kecil, elit, golongan kaya. Itu traditional bank. Dan orang tidak buka account. Kalau orang kampung, petani, nelayan, pemandu teksi, itu jarang terkenal dengan bank. Walaupun Tugu Zafrul itu memang pengurus bank, terkenal dulu. Dia ada pula sikit-sikit, ada. Ada kecupung. I'm talking about traditional bank, notion of a bank. Yeah? That how it began and it operates. Tetapi dengan perkembangan masa, orang merasakan bagaimana boleh kita kenalkan satu prakasa ekonomi dan kita anggap mampan kalau dia meminggirkan majoriti rakyat. Bagaimana kita bicara soal kemampanan? Mampan maknanya apa? Sustainable. Apa arti sustainability atau kemampanan? Kalau hanya itu mampan bagi segelintir kecil, elit, kemudian meminggirkan marginalized majority. Itu notion of a traditional bank. Now, yang membanggakan saya dalam melihat digital bank, apalagi GXBank, itu dalam masa yang singkat, setahun, dan mencecah pendedahannya kepada 800,000 orang. Ini suatu pencapaian yang sangat membanggakan. Terima kasih. Dan 800,000 itu tentunya bukan sahaja golongan profesional, golongan atasan, Tan Sri, Datuk-Datuk macam bagi depan ni, atau tuan-tuan macam Tuan Gobin, tetapi yang melibatkan semua. Anak muda, tentunya yang pemandu Grab memang termasuk dalam, saya percaya. Itu orang yang pertama dari target. Dan kalau boleh sampai ke petani nelayan, miskin bandar, kerana ini akan menyebabkan mereka mengerti. Ada dua proses. Suatu faedah kepada mereka. Ada peluang kepada mereka. Pinjaman atau faedah dari segi kemudahan bank itu dirasa oleh mereka. Walaupun kecil. Dia bukan mencecah puluhan juta. Mungkin ribu ringgit. Tapi ini sangat bermakna kepada mereka. Bila saya perkenalkan amanah ikhtiar 30 tahun yang lalu, kita bicarakan soal pinjaman RM2,000, RM5,000. Tetapi RM2,000 bagi seorang kata wanita ibu tunggal di kampung, itu sangat bermakna untuk dia jadikan modal untuk berniaga, buat kuih, hantar di kedai. Jadi dalam isu ini, dalam apa yang saya sebut digital bank, konsepnya sama, diperluaskan. Sebab itu kalau dalam 1 tahun kita boleh mencecah 800,000, maka kemudahan itu apa yang disebut dalam ekonomi yang merakyatkan. Ekonomi bagi saya tidak mampan kalau tidak merakyatkan. Ekonomi itu tidak sustainable kalau dia menyebabkan gross marginalization, masyarakat banyak atau ramai. Jadi oleh itu bagi saya yang pertama faedah kepada mereka, dan kedua yang sangat kritikal dalam zaman digital ini, ialah pendedahan kepada maksud digital. Tugu Zafrul tahu bila tiap-tiap kali kita perkenalkan satu konsep baru macam digital transformation, tekankan, saya sangat bimbang. Kerana apa erti perubahan dan zaman atau teknologi baru dan digital kalau ia tidak memberi manfaat kepada masyarakat terbanyak? Atau lebih parah, dia menyebabkan kesenjangan yang lebih melebar. Dia menyebabkan gross inequality when we start introducing new instruments. The entire purpose of ekonomi madani, the aim, and our intentions, of course, to ensure that we grow, but at the same time, to cater for the welfare of the majority of our people. Now, if digitalization means a new technology, which is essential, which is critical for the country, but at the same time has caused further inequality, then we lose out a major thrust of ekonomi madani, that we do not spend with justice to the majority of our people. And this is precisely the reason why I think the second impact of digital bank, precisely GXBank, is one, you give the facilities. After all, bankers, of course, they make money. Don't tell me that you don't or you don't want to. But what is more critical is that it caters for the interests of the majority of our people. That's important to ensure real sustainability. But the second important critical point is that this is an important education, exposure to the vast majority of our people that a digital bank means you have to understand what digital transformation is all about. And through that, you actually have 800,000 people in a matter of 1 year to understand the meaning, impact of digitalization. And to me, that for a country like Malaysia, that is far more useful, meaningful to ensure further progress and to keep the pace of development at a faster rate. Jadi oleh itu, saya datang sebab itu je. Nak beritahu terima kasih. Yang lain-lain tu, kalau tanya saya pasal GXBank, I don't have the expertise. Bank ini Tunggu Zafrul punya forte. Digital, go been struggling to understand better. Saya tekankan tentang dasar dan my duty is of course to further encourage you to push this agenda forward. Pastikan pihak kerajaan dan pihak swasta berganding bahu, bekerjasama dan untuk memastikan Malaysia ini terus bangkit sebagai satu kekuatan ekonomi, teknologi. So, saudara, percayalah, pusat kecemerlangan yang dibicarakan tadi, Center of Excellence, itu sangat kritikal. Bincang daripada awal, remember, saya tekankan, you want to set up, please make sure. Center of Excellence kerana dia menjadi gedung, tempat untuk melatih anak-anak. Anak-anak kita ni pintar, tapi kadang-kadang tidak ada peluang. Orang bicara soal meritokrasi. Meritokrasi is important. Hari itu saya bicara tentang meritokrasi, ada orang faham. Dia kata, Anwar tak setuju meritokrasi. Sebab saya kata, merit ini must be fair. You want to compete with the best schools in KL with a school in Kapit, and you talk about fair competition. So, meritocracy is essential, but it must also promote fairness. Ini klasik John Rawls economic theory. Justice is fairness. Baik. Tetapi ini bukan bermakna saya ketepikan merit. You want to have the best professionals, Zaitun. You must choose the best. Doesn't matter. Kaum apa, warna dia, kampung dia, tak peduli, bukan? Sama juga kalau saya nak tanya doktor. Zaman saya ramai orang sakit, jadi saya cakap pasal doktor. Saya cari doktor, kita mesti tentukan mesti doktor terbaik. Jadi merit itu masih sangat relevan. Cuma jangan kita terlalu gairah atau obses dengan merit sehingga kita lupa. Di sana ramai yang tidak mampu kerana tidak diberikan peluang. So Center of Excellence ini mesti ada dasar yang cukup untuk pengurus-pengurus bank, tetapi juga program latihan dan pendedahan kepada kalangan yang miskin sama ada di bandar atau desa. So, Zaitun, kerana Zaitun angguk, saya nak tengok laporannya nanti. Apakah benar dalam Center of Excellence ini kita kata prioritinya tentu untuk pengurusan, tapi ada juga komponen di mana diberi peluang kepada anak-anak muda kita dari yang terbaik dan juga yang terpinggir. Jadi dengan cara demikian, bank ini akan meletakkan satu dasar yang betul-betul inklusif, tetapi juga inovatif, tetapi juga yang ada yang kita ihsan, yang juga pilar dalam madani, itu compassion. Demikian saja kuliah saya pagi ini. Saya bangga kerana kejayaan cepat. Saya tidak jangka dalam masa cepat gini diluluskan, kemudian kerjasama yang diberikan oleh Bank Negara dan Menteri Kewangan dan kementerian, dan dalam masa yang cepat sudah telah mencatat kemajuan yang membanggakan. Saya ucap terima kasih kepada semua pengurusan dan juga seluruh staf dan dari semua di semua tingkat ini. Terima kasih dan saya dengan penuh kebanggaan meluncurkan Ibu Pejabat dan juga Pusat Kecemerlangan GXBank. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Terima kasih atas ucap tama yang amat berhormat Datuk Seri. Dipersilakan untuk kekal di atas pentas untuk perasmian inisiatif GX untuk semua. Sebelum itu, majlis ingin menjemput ke pentas div-div kehormat untuk turut menyaksikan detik bersejarah ini. Para tetamu yang dihormati, kini kita telah sampai ke saat yang dinanti-nantikan. Majlis menjemput Perdana Menteri yang amat berhormat Datuk Seri Anwar bin Ibrahim untuk bersedia mengikut kiraan saya seterusnya merasmikan inisiatif GX untuk semua dengan menyentuh GX card ke atas terminal. Sudah bersedia? Okay, count with me everybody in 3, 2, 1. Dengan ini, majlis menjemput Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri untuk menandatangani paparan tablet dengan menggunakan stylus yang disediakan. Sekalian, itulah dia GX untuk semua. Terima kasih sekali lagi Yang Amat Berhormat Datuk Seri kerana meraihkan detik bersejarah ini bersama.
Malaysia sebenarnya berada di kedudukan kedua terburuk di dunia berkaitan keseimbangan hidup dan kerja.
LRT3 sudah akan mula beroperasi suku ketiga 2025. Kerja-kerja fizikal dan penstrukturan sudah mencecah 95%.
KPM sebenarnya sedang memperincikan cadangan untuk menyediakan allowance kos sara hidup tingkatan 6.
Libat urus antara umat Islam dan agama lain penting supaya dapat mengelakkan ataupun membawa kepada Islamofobia.